So I mean, it's and the fact that he not only has not taken that very simple step of saying, yeah, okay, here's my long-form birth certificate, which, by the way, is totally different from this live birth certificate that they have waved around saying, here it is. A live birth certificate simply states that you were born. Well, I don't think anybody is doubting that. What we want and need is the long-form birth certificate that is signed by a doctor and tells which hospital he was born in and gives the weight and oftentimes a little baby footprint and all this good stuff.
Yeah.
So what's the big deal? And the only reason I can even come up with on why he wouldn't show that is because it would show that he's not constitutionally qualified. And in fact, I've seen the letters that went out from the Democratic National Committee to the states back in 2008, early 2008, when his name popped up as being the leading contender. And on some of them, it states that this is to certify that he has complied with the constitutional requirements. But on many of them, that phrase was left out. And I find that very, very intriguing.
It was telling, indeed. And I agree with you. I don't think disclosure's coming.
No.
I'm going to Steve Bassett's X conference in May, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But I'm one of the few that, doesn't believe disclosure is going to happen. They're not going to tell us what they know.
No, but I will say this, George, and it's already happening. It's already happening. And just think back over the past, say, 10 years. There's a whole lot more out there being acknowledged and admitted to than was before. Now, I agree with you that I don't think the day is going to come anytime real soon when any political figure is going to stand up, hold a press conference, get in front of all the mainstream cameras and say, oh, okay, folks, we've lied to you for 70 years.
And this is why.
Yeah, and for whatever excuse they may have. And here's what's really going on. No, that ain't going to happen. But I think you'd agree with me, George, that disclosure is happening. It's just happening subtly and from the grassroots. People
and whistleblowers.
And whistleblowers. They're all there. And that's another thing. All you have to do is look at some 400 plus people who are now on the public record who's saying, well, when I was in the military or when I was in intelligence, I saw this, I know this, I held this, I picked this up, I took it over there. But again, we're back to the control of the mainstream media. They will not even address it. They will not even look at it.
No, that's a good point. Next up, we go to Inglewood, California, west of the Rockies. Hello, Bill. Go ahead. You're up with us.
Hey, George Norrie.
Hi, Bill.
How you doing? Hey, Mr. Mars, good to hear from you. Got some books and everything.
Howdy, Bill.
I've got two questions to ask you. First, the guy's name is Sonny Bono. Wasn't he killed in a skiing accident? A lot of people believe that he may have been assassinated.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, I heard he may have been trying to stop or take somebody out of power over in Haiti, the president. And would he be the same president today? And how would you go about researching that? Okay, it's something to do with that. And I'm going to try and make this other one fast. Car rental companies, if you ever rent a car, you go across the state or whatever through the entire United States, most car rental companies, they will have the great majority of their vehicles, their fleet, would be foreign cars. If, let's say, the rental companies decided to buy nothing but American-made cars, would that help out the economy, or would the government be trying to say, hey, let's keep buying foreign-made cars for some reason?
Well, if you recall the Cash for Clunkers program, if you go and look at it closely, you'll find out that mostly they're getting people to turn in their American cars, and then they would get a really good deal on a Toyota or a Honda or something like that. So I don't see it. I just see this as more machinations by the New World Order boys to just control over it. And we see this again with the recently passed Obama health care plan. That would be what's happened there is the same thing as if they passed a law that said you have to buy a General Motors car. And you say, well, I don't want a car, I want a bicycle. Well, you're going to get one anyway, or you're going to pay for it because the IRS under the health care plan can now come in and garnish your wages or take your savings or keep your tax refund if you refuse to go along with that program. And I'm sorry, do we need some health care program in this country? Probably so, but anything that is not voluntary, to me, is tyrannical.
Well, that's true, too. All right, thanks. Doug in San Francisco. Go ahead, Douglas.
Hey, always good to talk to you, Mr. Norrie,
Hey.
and this is a great privilege to finally get a chance to speak to Mr. Mars.
Well, howdy.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
howdy, sir. Maybe I'll meet you at one of the upcoming conventions soon. And I wanted to reinforce your thesis with some specific details from translated Reich documents I was dealing with back in my DOD days. You mentioned, of course, the propaganda that kept the German people mobilized, and you mentioned Foo Fighters.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to emphasize, of course, Foo Fighters, as you know, are how Americans referred to them in the Pacific. And in Europe, of course, they were called Krautballs, or what the Germans themselves called Führerballs.
Mm-hmm.
But these were kind of separate from saucer technology because they were highly maneuverable, radio remote-controlled, multiple-headed magnesium flares with super elongated coils to provide extended duration. Mm-hmm. And they were under the authority of the Reichspropaganda Ministry. And Reichspropaganda Minister Dr. Paul Joseph Goebbels was known as the only German general who never lost the war because he kept the Germans fighting to the very end. But
Right.
his greatest victory against the Allies was convincing them that because the Reich was the first state to exploit television broadcasting at ceremonial events, that these were intercepted signals that were the first encountered by extraterrestrial powers. And he told them that the Krautballs, or the Führerballs, were sent by extraterrestrial presences that were supporting the Reich and recognized the Third Reich as the only legitimate government representing our planet, thereby necessitating continuity of state beyond national borders. And the Allies took this seriously enough to take several steps back during Nazi evacuation operations. And so it's one of those peculiarities of the Nazi administration that the Luftwaffe, which gets all the glamour, had over half of its command was anti-aircraft batteries and flak guns as opposed to planes, and they also had authority over paratroopers, but the SS had its own paratroopers, and they got all the notoriety for a lot of the saucer technology. And, I just want to bring this up to support what you're saying, and I want to thank you for helping to present the fact that the Third Reich's Nazi war was very much a new 100 years war of a religious type of war in Europe.
Well, you are so correct, Doug. And Doug, of course, Jim is one of our researchers. As a matter of fact, last time he was on with us in an official capacity was during the Pearl Harbor anniversary, December 7th. We'll be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Well, next hour, Giorgio Tsoukalos joins us as we talk about ancient aliens. And when we come back, of course, we'll continue taking your calls with Jim Mars on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back. We've got Jim Mars, and we're going to take your final phone calls with Jim. Jim, I wanted you to get you got that speaking event coming up in May, and tell us about the upcoming release of your new book.
Right. But first, could I add a coda of what Doug just said? He was absolutely correct, but what people don't understand is that historians, academics that have go and poured through all the Third Reich records, they're looking at, they can find out all they want to know about the Wehrmacht, about the Luftwaffe, the Navy, but the trick is all of their super secret stuff was being conducted by the SS. And even Albert Speer, their armaments minister, said that there were programs the SS were operating that he was not even privy to, that he didn't even know what was going on. And this is why that at the end of the war, a lot of those SS guys, especially the top guys, they all got out. And they took their records with them and they destroyed the rest. That's why we don't have the hard proof of what they were actually up to.
Okay, very good. Next up, let's go now to Redford, Michigan. There he is, Mark, where my cousin used to live. Hi, Mark.
Yeah, George, I just wanted to say, greetings.